Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And let's go into this story because there's a lot of liquidation happening, there's a lot of buying up of gold, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that points to very significant future possibilities, which we've talked about so much here at WAM before. Now let's go into this story from RT. Russia liquidates nearly all of its holdings of US debt and invests money in gold. The Central Bank of Russia has continued getting rid of U.S. Treasury bonds in August. The share of Russian investments in American debt is getting close to zero. Russian investments in U.S. securities as of August have fallen to just $14 billion. Back in 2011, Russia was one of the largest holders of U.S. debt with a $180 billion investment. The reason is not only about politics and U.S. sanctions against Russia. A broker at Otkrity Bank, Timur Nigmatulin, told RIA Novosti. The U.S. Federal Reserve is hiking interest rates, which makes American bonds cheaper, he said. And I quote, Russia has almost dropped out of the list of holders of U.S. government debt, being the 54th largest holder. And I quote, a further sale of U.S. Treasury bonds by Russia will most likely be compensated by buying gold and opening short-term deposits at banks, he said. The share of precious metals in the country's foreign reserves has reached a record 18%, closely approaching the share of dollar investments. The largest investors in U.S. debt, China and Japan, have also cut their holdings. Chinese holdings of U.S. sovereign debt dropped to $1.165 trillion in August from $1.171 trillion in July, marking the third consecutive month of declines. Japan has slashed its holdings of U.S. securities to $1.029 trillion in August, the lowest since October 2011. The reason for holding money in U.S. bonds is global trade, which is still dominated by the dollar. Director of macroeconomic analysis at Expert Raw Anton Tabat told Izvestia Daily. So countries are forced to have a lot of dollars in cash, and U.S. bonds are the best option for that. India and Turkey have followed Russia's lead. Turkey has dropped out of the top 30 list of holders of American debt, while India has been liquidating its investments for 5 consecutive months to $140 billion in August. Okay, so let's go into this, John. There is a lot of moves being made around the world, not to mention the swapping out of the currency, of the world reserve currency, US dollar, this push towards power in China. We see Russia really upping its abilities to mine gold, which it's already doing at a massive pace. So, John, what do you think about all this?
Well, I think it's just, as we've been talking about so many times, Josh, move away from the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency. That's what we're seeing here, and it's just getting more and more apparent. You know, we've been talking about, we did a video on all the different currency swaps that are going outside of the U.S. dollar on bilateral trade. So you see a whole bunch of countries are taking away the use of the dollar as a medium of exchange, going over to just use each other's currency. So that shows you that they're moving away from the US dollar because they're seeing the problems with the political ramification, what's going on in the United States. Nobody likes the U.S. military industrial complex going and killing people everywhere. Nobody likes the Federal Reserve. And of course, the U.S. government with mass amounts of debt and the bond holdings, as you said, of Russia. So I'm going to just show you guys two quick charts here of the U.S.-Russia holdings. This is the historical one since 2006. So you can see that they were kind of low until 2008, but then they racked up on U.S. debt. And then now we're seeing a downtrend again. And if you take a look at this other chart, which is just current over the last year, you can clearly see that there's basically no more U.S. debt holdings by the Central Bank of Russia. So it's interesting. You're seeing this move away from the U.S. dollar. Japan is doing it. A couple other countries are selling off their U.S. bonds because holding U.S. bonds is risky and you're losing a lot of money on it when your interest rates goes up.
Yeah, I have to say, John, it seems like a lot of them are trying to clear their hands or clean their hands of a lot of dirt and nastiness with the United States as they move towards this massive power shift that we're seeing slowly, like a frog boil, take place. And it's almost goes unnoticed if it weren't for, you know, independent medias like us and others talking about it, because let's face it, this isn't in the mainstream media at all. And I think this is incredibly important, detrimental in one way, prosperous for those that are getting away from it in another way, but overall a lesson that has to be learned, that individuals must start preparing for this big outbreak, because Well, the top elites are. So what do they know that we don't know?
I don't know, Josh. I think they know something about history, maybe, and how fiat currencies always goes bust because they always overprint the currency when they have the availability of doing that, because it's just the corruptedness of the monetary system. I had a good conversation with a friend of mine just the other day, and we were going in deep depth about the issues in the world. And it's funny, every single issue he was talking about, I just went, hey, listen, and then I explained the monetary system did that. The monetary system corrupted the corporation or the business or whatever it was. It destroys lives. It destroys corporations. It corrupts everything that it touches. When you destroy the monetary system, you destroy society. And that's how simple it is. I want to show a couple of things that is happening in Europe. We were mentioning Russia, but huge news out of Hungary. And this is a press release from the Hungarian central bank, and they just recently actually tenfolded their holdings in gold. 10 times the holdings. Now, if you take a look at Russia, I can show the chart here on the official gold reserves. So you could see the Russian reserves has gone up about 4.5 times since 2000. Well,
to about 1,944 tons.
Yeah, and then of course the new numbers are not here from Hungary, but the new numbers are up tenfold. So you're seeing it's a massive increase. But yeah,
that would be from like 3.1 tons to about 31
yeah,
tons.
31 point. If you go into the article area, you see exactly how much it is. It's 31.5 tons. It's about $1.24 billion worth of gold. It doesn't sound like much, 31 tons, but for a little country like Hungary to go from 3.1, which is actually what Canada used to have, and Norway was pretty close to it as well, and then we got nothing. You have another country buying 10 times more. I don't know who's the smartest guy. Is it the guys over in Hungary that understand that there's something wrong with the monetary system, or is it the bozos in Norway and in Canada that just sells off? Is like, yeah, we don't need gold. Gold is a barbarous relic. It's just a thing of the past. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Meanwhile, though I'm highly saying that, in my opinion, that people, because the moronic, stupid central bank in Canada sold all this gold, it's time to position yourself in gold and silver. You have to have precious metals as a wealth insurance, because what you're seeing is several countries now, central banks around the world, big names in investment world, banks and so on, are positioning themselves out of the system. Meanwhile, they're saying like, hey, the stock market is going to keep on going up. The bond market is, doing great. Yeah, it's keeping that investor confidence, Josh, and it's going to, come down as bad 3 times, who knows how many times worse than 2001 and 8.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a bad feeling that the Hungarians aren't going to be like being called a small country or a tiny country. But speaking of a really big country, though, China, they're obviously trying to position themselves to be the world reserve currency. They have a centrally planned cashless system that they're trying to unroll. The IMF wants to put their headquarters in Beijing, China in the next few years. Lots to talk about that. Meanwhile, China, the fascist communist state, is actually trying to get their citizens to own gold, which is telling you a bit about that power shift, because they want to position themselves to be the next big powerhouse, and that is a huge issue. Now, I want to quickly go into, the importance of gold and silver in a crash historically. In our opinion, it's wealth insurance. It's not investment advice, so let's put it that way. It's very important. There's a huge shift happening, and also, for personal means as well, you got to look at, decentralized cryptocurrencies. So I also want to just throw something in here because I have to. I only have like a week to go, but I need to tell people that they can get tickets to World CryptoCon, one of the biggest crypto conventions in the world. If they type in promo code WAM5050, that's WAM5050, they can save 50% on their tickets. 50%, that's no joke. That's huge. And you get to hang out with me, Jeff Berwick, and Charlie Lee from Litecoin and stuff. Anyway, I got to put that in there because I only have a week to promote this. Anyway, so it's really important that we look at these decentralized solutions and look at ways that we can position ourselves to save ourselves and our families and be financially educated, self-sustainable. Incredibly important, because all fiat currencies eventually revert to the true value of zero. They always have, they always will, going back to 1024 AD in China, and this time will not be any different. We just cannot put a date on the crash. So I think it's better that we are overprepared than underprepared.
Oh, exactly, Josh. And just one last pointer, take a look at the current world reserve currencies in the world and their power. You're looking at the US dollar is 62.16%. That's not, of course, the complete news numbers, but that just shows you how much they lost. You can see, of course, the Eurozone is the second biggest one. And that's why you have the Eurozone calling on that they need. We did a video on that where we're calling on creating a new monetary system outside of the US dollar. Both the European Union and China is trying to take over this power vacuum that will most likely happen after the US dollar fails. So you're just seeing mass amounts of runs towards the US dollar, towards the other currencies. But I think the last thing I'm going to say in this video is the importance of actually owning your assets. Owning your assets. That's why you're seeing the German government and other, actually Hungary was talking about how they had repatriated some of the gold that was held in England and so on. It's so important to actually have physical holdings of your metals or any other asset that you have. If you just have a paper or a claim on something or even on exchanges with crypto, you don't really have the full ownership of that asset. Yeah. So it's so important today, in today's day and age, to actually have physical ownership and hold those assets that where you can actually access them, because it's so easy with today's financial system to put asset freezes on. They could limit you and shut you out of all of your money in an instant, Josh. It's so important to tell people.
Don't be an ass, hold your assets, and also if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank. That's a very important bottom line as those banks go bankrupt and their cash to deposit ratio is absolutely horrendous. So anyway, we've been trying to end our videos a bit sooner lately because we get talking and we'll go on forever. And apparently it doesn't do very good for our algorithm on YouTube, kind of pushes us out of the mix. So anyway, I think it's best that we end it here, but always remember to be self-sustainable and financially responsible. Responsibility is a hallmark of freedom itself. As I mentioned, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, in our opinion, it's just historical advice. It's not even advice. I can't say advice. Stupid government. Anyway, but there's also, food, water, shelter, self-defense, so you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block, and of course, everything we mentioned before. So be educated, understand this, do your own due diligence, and realize that these stories are all accumulating at the same time. It's so much that we end up being repetitive because it's coming out constantly every single day.
Oh, and one last thing. The stock market's the last week, guys. I totally forgot to talk about that.
That was brutal.
And that is, of course, to talk about the trade wars. It has so much more to do with the raise in interest rates. That's the number one thing that's happening, is the fear of investors that all this debt is going to come down. It was interesting. I was looking at another article just recently about how I think it was Goldman Sachs saying, we're about 80% through the correction, but don't worry, because they're going to be share buybacks now, so we're going to prop the market back up again.
More centralization totally stops the problems of centralization. It's just so ridiculous. And I mean, there's no fundamental value really there. There's very little anyway. No. So anyway, just don't get too glassy-eyed with, this idea that you're just going to make money fast, because that has been the demise of so many people in the past. Anyway, thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored on YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. Also, check out our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at steemit.com. We're at Josh Sigurdson. It's a future of social media where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency. Steem, that is. So make sure to check us out there. Make sure to join us at Anarchapulco 2019 with people like Ron Paul, G. Edward Griffin, of course, Jeff Berwick, Vid Jedlicka. So many incredible speakers are going to be speaking. It's just a massively growing event. It is something you have to see to believe. So make sure to check it out below and save money on your tickets by using promo code WAM, that's WAM, and I hope to see you there. Also, check out our newsletter as we are getting demonetized and censored and all that. We don't know what comes next, so we have an email, worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. Send us an email with subject line YES, YES, and we will include you in the newsletter where we will continuously keep you updated. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.